Hey guys, it's Rod from Civil Advantage Firearms Training here. We're going to be doing a new series, yet another new series. I know I kind of do these new series, get between 2 and 4 videos, and whatever happened to the series. But I'm trying to do the best I can, man. Nonetheless, I kind of had these videos in me, so I got to get them out. So I'm going to call this series, I'm thinking, Canadian Firearm Ownership: A Guide for the Undecided. So the purpose of these videos are maybe you have someone in your life that you haven't quite been able to win over as far as them agreeing with you, hey, owning firearms as a civilian is a great idea. Maybe they're still kind of anti-gun, or maybe they're undecided. The greatest part of our society in Canada are the undecided, actually. So these, if you need some kind of tool available to help articulate the things that you think are really important for them to know about the firearms community or firearm ownership, hopefully these can serve as a good tool for that. So blah, blah, blah. On this episode, we're going to talk about how easy or how difficult it is to get a firearms license in Canada. Are these people, meaning us, are we vetted properly, or do you just go shake a guy's hand, hand him a couple $100 and you get a firearms license? What is that process? So hopefully this helps solidify in some people's minds what it takes to get and to keep a firearms license in Canada. So the way that I'm going to go through this is just to use the application for a PAL, which is a possession and acquisition license. I'm just going to use the application as a guide and give you just some extra information that I'm privy to that you may or may not be aware of. So in Canada, if you want to get a firearms license, you have to take a 2-day safety course. And prove competency with a firearm. You have to pass that, and then you have to apply for a firearms license with the course report, the paperwork that you get when you pass the course. Just to let you know, in the United States it's a little bit different, and many other countries, but the United States are closest to us, right? They're just down south there, so I tend to like to refer to them when we look at the differences, but you don't need to prove any competency whatsoever. You just need to not be a felon and have ID and be over 18 in most states. So very different system. And there's good and bad about it, and we can debate that or discuss that later. Nonetheless, you have to have a firearms license in Canada to be in sole possession of a firearm, and also to buy or acquire one. So if you look at the application, again, you've gone through that 2-day safety course. One thing I will mention before we get into this, is that there is what I would consider a loophole in the system, which is challenging the exam. So some people, I'm not going to say some people, I get a fair amount of people that call me and say, hey, I just want to challenge, I've been hunting since I was 7. Or, yeah, I'm an RCMP member, I just want to challenge. Or, I'm in border protection and we're getting pistols, but, I know a lot about firearms law, I want to challenge. And I try to convince people, hey, believe me, if you take the 2-day safety course, which really isn't that much more effort, and it's really not that much more money, I guarantee that at the end of the course, you'll be walking away going, I can't believe I was going to challenge. I've done courses exclusively for the RCMP. I've done courses exclusively for Canada Corrections. I've done all kinds of stuff like that, and I've never once, ever, had anyone walk out of the class going, that was a waste of time, I knew all that stuff. I always have people going, this is fantastic, this should be required in our training. So, I don't want to get too sidetracked. I tend to digress a little bit, but just if you guys are thinking of that, and don't do it. Take the course, and it doesn't really make any difference to me, other than as a firearm owner having to stand next to you out in the bush, or at the range. I know that's where it's going to make a difference to me when I look at your habits and your safety. So once you pass the course, you will get a firearms license or PAL application. There's 2 firearms licenses. There's one, which is the PAL, which is a possession and acquisition license for non-restricted firearms. That is typically rifles and shotguns that aren't restricted or prohibited. And there's another license, which is the restricted firearms license, or the RPAL, restricted possession and acquisition license. And that is typically for pistols, but also any rifle or any shotgun of any kind for any reason that the RCMP thinks should be restricted. And that tends to pull a lot of rifles and shotguns in there. And we'll talk about that in another video. But always good to get the restricted. Again, just a quick little side note of advice. If you're going to go in and get your license, for the love of everything that's good in this world, just get both licenses at the same time. Yes, it's an extra day, 2 days in total for both licenses. It's an extra $75 at most schools. Pay the $75 and stay the extra day and just get both licenses. You'll be happy you did later. Okay, so when we go through the application, just to let you know, so most people from the outside are like, oh, you know, all these gun owners and their crazy guns and all the rest of that stuff, you know, this is a threat to society. Well, let's really look at it. What does it take to get a firearms license? Of course, you've done the course. Now you're getting into the application. The application has all your personal information in it. Also, we have some other personal information. So let's go through this real quick. For one, all of this stuff has to be completely truthful. If you lie or stretch the truth in any part of this application, and they find out, and they investigate every single application, every one of them. If they find out that you've misled them in any way, this application either gets denied or goes onto a separate pile. And I'm aware of what that pile is. That pile is like, okay, it's a pile for the people that are going to take a year to get that license, and you're going to be submitting paperwork this high to compensate for your misleading them ahead of time. So make sure that you're truthful on this form if you're filling it out. So when we look at personal history, we have stuff like, during the past 5 years, have you been charged, convicted, or granted a discharge for an offense under the criminal code where violence was used, threatened, or attempted, involving the misuse, possession, or storage of a firearm, or involving trafficking or importing drugs or controlled substances. So what this is saying is, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit extra information, having a criminal record does not mean that you won't get a firearms license. The government, despite, you know, any other information or your personal feelings or my personal feelings for that matter, they're actually really fair at the Firearms Center. And I know I catch flack from other instructors and people in my community for that, but I found them to be quite fair. I know a lot of people have come through, they've had a youth record, or they've had a record involving, you know, theft under $1,000 or whatever, some other, you know, medium level offenses, and you know what, they get firearms licenses. So what they're worried about is they do not want to give you a firearms license if you're a violent person, if you solve your problems using violence, if you are suspected of any spousal abuse, any assaults, that kind of stuff, right? Any drug trafficking, of course, right? So these are the things that are going to be a problem if you want to get a license. During the past 5 years, have you been subject to a peace bond protection order under Section 810 of the Criminal Code, so a restraining order? So I would imagine that if I was a person who was getting restraining orders put against me, I probably shouldn't have a firearms license, right? So that's the kind of stuff they're looking for also. During the past 5 years, have you threatened or attempted suicide, or diagnosed with depression, alcohol, drug or substance abuse, behavioral problems, or emotional problems? So if you are at any risk for a suicide, they don't want to give you firearms. Can you commit suicide with something other than a firearm? Of course, but still they're trying to reduce our firearms-related death numbers, and we'll talk about those in another video. References. So you also, on top of all this stuff, you have to provide 2 references of people that have known you at least 3 years. They have to be over 18, and they can't be your spouse or conjugal partner. So what they're doing there is they're drawing in other people from the community that will have to trust you enough to vouch for you. Okay, which is really good, because what they're trying to do is ferret out any, you know, professional liars, or maybe someone that's good at forging paperwork or whatever. They're actually getting in and saying there's, you know, someone has to be a full-time job trying to defraud the Firearms Center to get a firearms license, right? So make it really, really difficult for people to get around the system. So these people have to vouch for you, and in fact, these people are contacted and they're interviewed on the phone personally by someone from the Firearms Center, and they're asked personal questions, like, you know, are you yourself comfortable with the thought of Rod having a firearm? Most people wouldn't be, for me. But anyway, that's not part of the video. So, but they're going to ask them, you know, personal questions like that. And then at the end, of course, you have to provide a picture. And not only can you just provide a picture, but you have to have a photo guarantor. This is somebody who's known you for at least a year, who is over 18, that can vouch personally that that picture is actually you. So again, they're drawing in more people. You have to be part of the community and for people to trust you to get a firearms license. You're going to have to pay a fee. I think it's $80 right now for both licenses, $40 I think for one. It's been a while since I looked through here. But, and also you have to verify that all this stuff is true and correct because it's perjury to give them the wrong information. Now, when you get a firearms license, here's something interesting, is that people will, that are not familiar with how the system works will say, well, this guy, I heard he's got an AR-15. I heard this guy's got pistols and shotguns, and I've heard how dangerous pistols and shotguns and ARs can be. Let me tell you this, as a firearms owner, someone that holds a PAL in Canada gets their criminal record checked every 24 hours. Every day I get a criminal record check, every day. That means that I could get a license and 4 years later I could get into a bar fight, smash somebody over the head with a beer bottle, and think, yeah, well, it's okay, I don't have to renew for a year. No, they know the next day. I get arrested, they know. Right now, in Canada, there's 1.934 million PAO holders. Just under 2 million people in Canada own a firearms license. And the last time I looked at the numbers, I think, and you can check these on the Canadian Firearms website, I'll put it up here what the real number is, but I think it's around 1,200 revocations a year. So even when you have a firearms license, you can have that license revoked on a moment's notice. You get into trouble, you start screwing up, basically. You start screwing up and they'll take that license away. Then it sets off a big chain of events. You get your license taken away. Now you're in illegal possession of non-restricted rifles and shotguns or restricted firearms. Most times, if you get into serious enough trouble and they look at these cases on a case-by-case basis, a person actually looks at this situation at the Firearm Center. That's one of the reasons why they're so busy. I wasn't sure a while ago, I had to talk with them, and yeah, they have to do these revocations and these reviews, these license reviews, one at a time. So someone looks at that, they go, oh, bar fight? I don't know. Looks like indications look like he was defending himself. Okay, well, they will do a quick investigation, and if everything's cool, they won't take your license. If you were the aggressor and there's charges brought up against you, then your license is gone. They'll take it instantly, and then they'll either take your guns, they'll have you transfer them to someone else, or store them at someone else's location, or seize them altogether. So it's very serious. Plus, anyone can call in a safety concern, and those concerns will be investigated. So, what does this all mean? What does this whole application process and everything else mean? It means that the one person in your life that you may, before you watch this video, that you may have had some concern about because you know that they have some huge gun collection and they're always coming out of the house with their gun cases and going around. That's the one person in the world that you don't have to worry about. And it's a funny thing about gun owners. Gun owners are not just law-abiding because they get their criminal records checked every day or they've gone through this vetting process. They are more law-abiding for this reason. Because they have their guns, they love their hobby, and they don't want to lose their guns. That is, and I can't stress that enough. We as firearm owners are more law-abiding and less likely to even kind of skirt illegality in any way because we don't want to lose our guns under any circumstances. Personally, I mean, I can be in an area where people are smoking weed. Okay, I see people smoking weed. Maybe as a young man, I'd be like hanging around like, yeah, well, some people like to smoke weed, whatever. Now, I'm hoofing it the other way. I'm getting out of there because if I'm caught anywhere near these people, I could lose my guns. So you see, it's even more of a deterrent. These are, firearm owners are even more law-abiding than you can possibly imagine because they've actually got something more to lose. So, and any paperwork crime, if you're at all familiar with our laws, any paperwork crime can result in a federal gun charge. So we tend to color inside the lines at all times. So that's really what that means. If you don't know anything about firearms, you don't know what it takes to get licensed, now you do, it's serious business. So you can rest assured that those 2 million people that own 11 million firearms they think are in Canada, they're very well taken care of, and these people are using them and holding them to the letter of the law. Anyway, hopefully that's some good information. If you'd like to check us out on the web, you can find us at www.civiladvantage.com, and we will see you next time.